It is 12 a.m. on April 29th. The state is currently right now amplifying helicopter activity. That's P.O.C. That's a change in the activity. Not only as I speak, but as I turn on the camera, it goes high and low. That's stalking with activity. And the state is also flickering the lights in the bathroom. Understand that's controlling the electricity. It is 3:57 p.m. This is called monitoring inside of a private space, as I've already documented. This is attributed to economy, and the people of the state are monitoring an American citizen inside of a private space while disrobed, engaged in personal private activity. The state is currently stalking. The state's light source is here. The state is creating light activity inside of the bathroom, inside of the room, also creating light activity with its light source over the property, directing light, as I've already demonstrated in the totality of my documentation, especially here while I remain at economy N. This is audible activity that the state is monitoring me to under those circumstances. This is that sexual violence that the state is engaged in. The people of the state of California are jointly engaged in, and specifically to where I am at, the facilitating venue of economy N. This is facilitating activity, and this is monitoring while you are inside of a private space. This is it's 3:58 p.m. And I also want to be clear, like I stated, and as the state engages in, upon identifying a specific act as a part of the pattern of conduct, as criminal conduct, as I identify it verbally out loud such that they are able to hear me, then they engage in doing it incessantly. They were already doing it. I observe it. I don't say anything about it. Once I speak about it, then they engage in doing it repeatedly. This is the same thing with the television, all right? This is the same thing with the fake sun. The state engaged in even more aggressive following and hovering over me with its fake sun remaining over my head. Everywhere I go, upon my observing the fact that this was occurring, and then I started verbally documenting it and honing in on it in my documentation. The state has always been engaged in that criminal conduct. Upon my identification of it, now you have what is a squeaking shower, whereas before I mentioned it, it would come on and turn off pursuant to my change in activity. So it would come on as I got in the shower, for example. As I start washing a different part of my body, then it will come on. If I'm making a different movement in the shower after engaging in what was constant, steady activity, then it would turn on. It was stalking in that manner with activity. As you hear in the background, the state is actively listening to it. From the moment I turn the shower on till right now, it continuously engaged in that activity creation. This is the state that is actively listening to, okay? Adjusting to what they are listening to me document. And in addition to that, I want to be clear, Edison is a third party. Monitoring in a private space at Woodside Senior Apartments, flickering the lights inside of that venue, that's monitoring inside of a private space. Edison is a third party, not only monitoring in relevant position to me, as I have also documented, for example, in Pomona, California, when I was living in my car and I would walk down the street, the group stalkers would use their position as Edison, come out of their trucks, use light activity on the trucks, and just stand around a pothole in the middle of the street, engaging in form for loitering in relevant position for crossing path, creating light activity as they are sitting in their equipment vehicles as I'm walking past. Their group stalking in relevant position. They are also engaged in group stalking, controlling the electricity inside of a private space. This was documented both by Edison, the third party, controlling the electricity inside of Woodside Senior Apartments. Also here, flickering the lights as I stand at the vanity, flickering the light of the lamp beside the bed, flickering the light in the bathroom as that squeaking activity is continuing. And you also want to pay attention as you're hearing the squeaking start and stop. Again, as I turn the shower on, it remained squeaking for over 7 minutes straight. I started this documentation after listening to it, the state engaging, creating that prolonged activity. After I have said now that it continues, once I verbally identify it, and then the state does it more, then it starts stopping. Understand that. The state was not stopping it at all. It was continuous, and this is in conflict, and that is the pattern as well, okay? I'm pointing out a pattern, and I'm pointing out the fact that that's not a coincidence. They're actively listening to me document. This is a sexual violation, regardless of the fact that, first of all, there is no claim, there's no coincidences, there's no argument. The state is group stalking, the state is monitoring, and the state is doing it through the people of the state of California. This is audible activity inside of a private space, so not only what you're doing, but where you're doing it is for purposes of that sexually violent conduct that the government is engaged in, that the people of the state in the shoes of the government with them at Economy Inn are engaged in to date. So let me be clear about the sexual violence that is occurring. Everyone crossing path on the 60 freeway, they are aware of the fact that I am in the bathroom. The state is facilitating audible activity such that they are able to monitor me while I am inside of that private space, engaged in that personal activity. Every third-party group stalker on Euclid Avenue crossing path in their vehicles. The group stalkers that you have seen in my documentation on the opposite side of the brick wall, using their vehicles as light activity and crossing path, standing outside on the opposite side of the brick wall as I'm capturing videos and they're documenting in relevant position, at mobile, at the gas station, both as employees and patrons in relevant position, monitoring, while the state has that flickering light, which is a light activity for purposes of their ability to monitor. All the group stalkers that you see walking outside on the property, in the parking lot, walking back and forth, present, loitering in relevant position, either as a patron or as an employee, they are all monitoring me to that activity that they are creating inside of the bathroom. And I also want to point out something else. You're going to pay attention to the fact that what I am observing is sound coming from the fact that I have a shower running, which the entity that's monitoring me knows that I have the shower running. It's a Moen shower, M-O-E-N, okay? And I want to be clear, there's no calcium buildup. There is nothing that is in any way stifling the ability of the water to come out. It actually is in excellent condition. And I also engaged in twisting the shower head. There is absolutely nothing whatsoever that's causing this squeaking noise in the shower. And what I also observe is that the actual sound of the squeaking is not coming from the shower head. It is centered in sound in the bathroom, but it is not coming from the shower head. Understand that. This is, like I said, the state using what it is listening to you, or a nose that you are using, such as, for example, the lights, knows I'm using the lights, start flickering the lights, knows I'm using the television, starts using the television as a means of activity creation, knows I'm using the cooler, the swamp cooler in the room, or the heater, and starts using that as a means of creating activity. The shower is another means of that. Engaging in also literally banging, making noises through the walls, through the ceilings, and through the floors, creating earthquakes, for example. This is another means of activity, and that is sexual violence. All of those people that I am describing that are in relevant position, as I document on every other day, and they are engaged in group stalking, it does not stop when you are physically indisposed, disrobed, engaged in a personal activity inside of a private space. I want to be clear, they're all engaged in that corporate invasion of privacy by entity together right now. This is attributed to Economy Inn, those whom I have specifically individually identified, and those who are a part of the one group, the people of the state of California, monitoring to that activity. And I want to be clear, it is not a coincidence that the state starts and stops this audible activity as I identify the pattern, that after I have identified another tactic that the entity engages in, it engages in it more, which is also not any suggestion that it is naturally occurring or that it is in no way apart from the pattern of conduct. You create any sort of audible activity, it is going toward the government's ability to monitor me. And that is going to be attributed to whoever is in relevant position, because the people of the state of California are monitoring with that government. And it is also that which has been established. The government engages in manipulating and controlling the totality of that environment. And this is also that which is sound that I am observing. It's not even coming from the shower head. I want to be clear. It is centered in sound in the bathroom, and the state is using the shower, the fact that it knows I'm in the shower, to create what is noise that is supposed to be assumed to be coming from the shower head, and it's not. I want to be clear on that as well. It is currently 4:05 p.m. This is documentation of sexually violent, criminally monitoring conduct that is attributed both to Edison. Edison is flickering the lights in the bathroom while this audible activity is created. Edison is a third party, both monitoring inside of a private space, using its position to control the electricity. Edison also engaged in monitoring in relevant position as is a part of my documentation and a part of my recall as I began documenting third parties, and I was living in my car in different cities. Edison engaged in that same exact factual pattern, same as Spectrum, okay? It is the same exact pattern of conduct, and flickering the lights while you are manufacturing audible activity is not a coincidence. That's not only a demonic environment because they're monitoring, this is demonic activity that I'm surrounded by, this is also criminal monitoring conduct, and that is P.O.C. This is attributed, that third party, the managers, the owners, they are facilitators, they are violent sex offenders. They are worthy of being deported out of this country. This is criminal conduct directly attributed to them. The housekeepers, the patrons, the third-party patrons, they're all third parties. They are only third parties acting in specific capacities. This is all nothing but a stage where the government is monitoring on a systematic basis, and it does not stop as you are observing. This is an activity that they are monitoring. The state is monitoring me to right now, stalking in police cars, stalking in fire trucks, stalking in ambulance vehicles, stalking in planes and in helicopters right now, okay? And this is being surrounded. That is the unprecedented level of sexual violence, as they're all listening while I am in that, under those circumstances and engaged in that personal activity inside of that private space, okay? Being a group stalker is an exceedingly violent sex offense, and it is a perpetual sex offense. It is continuous as long as the government continues that criminal system, which you show it has I have showed the state is determined to continue to engage in. It is an exceedingly violent and threatening sex offender. The state of California, the public entity, is a sex offender, and the people of the state of California acting vicariously on behalf of that entity. Group stalking right now, all outside of the room in relevant position, okay? I am surrounded, and they are monitoring in that private space, including Edison, okay? That's P.O.C. The flickering light started as I changed from the podcast function to the camera. That's stalking with activity, that's monitoring. That's awareness of what I'm doing on my phone. That is also that which is inaudible to the human ear. This is ongoing knowledge of what I'm doing in the private space. And also the squeaking of the shower stops once I verbally mention out loud that is also a part of the pattern. Not only is this a part of the pattern of monitoring, this is a part of the pattern once I identify it, then they do it more. So in listening to me identify that, trying to contradict that which I am verbally documenting, okay? And that is the pattern in and of itself. Regardless, there is no argument for the people. There is certainly no argument for the state. That is already established as engaged in that criminal pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring, and they are monitoring to that activity. Not only activity that I create while I'm in the shower, the state is going the extra step to create ongoing noise. Understand that is the government constructively present inside of that private space, and literally takes on the form of touching your person while they're creating this noise inside in order to be in there. It's just as you have seen personified with the state's use of light, wanting to molest and be all over the person. And it is not even that which is naturally occurring. So you're going the extra step to touch and violate the person, to follow and stalk in this incredible manner in order to engage in a criminal system of monitoring, serving no legitimate purpose whatsoever, acting in concert with every single person that is around, irrespective of their identity, their race, their economic status, their position, their trade. Everyone is acting with that government. This is how public criminal monitoring operates. They're using communication devices, and the state is going the extra step to use what is knowledge that I'm in the shower to create what is the noise that is supposed to be attributed to the shower, and it is not coming from the actual shower. It is centered in sound, as the state is targeting that audible activity and attributing it to the shower. And the sound is not even coming from the shower, and the shower head itself is not actually squeaking. I want to be clear. That's audible activity that I'm being monitored to while I am physically indisposed. That's sexually violent conduct, while the people of the state, the group in and of itself, are maintaining ongoing real-time knowledge while engaged in corporate invasion of privacy. That's P.O.C., okay? It's 4:09 p.m. All right, it is the same date. It's Thursday, April 29th, 2021. It is currently 5:10 p.m. And I just took some pictures of the shower head. Again, I have already provided video of the state engaging in activity creation inside of what is legally relevant, a private space where the state is actively engaged in ceaseless group stalking by police, fire, ambulance, planes, and helicopters. That is the system of federal group stalking and monitoring with communication devices. The state operates the system in concert with the people of the state. The current state happens to be the state of California. The people of the state of California are group stalking with that and on behalf of that public entity in relevant position where I remain at Economy Inn, a third-party facilitating venue located at 2301 South Euclid Avenue. While I am on the second floor of room 227, this is the ongoing activity creation, which I captured in video already. I have uploaded this, and so that you can see what I'm talking about. I just like to provide visuals whenever feasible. And it is also relevant to note what you're looking at. You're looking at what is video of nothing but a shower head, and the state is creating targeted audible activity of what is none other than high-pitched squeaking, which is supposed to be assumed to be coming from the shower head. That is not actually the case. It is the state artificially engineering sound targeted to my location where I happen to be and amplifying it in volume, doing it with simultaneity to my activity, to my location in the room. And I took pictures again today so you can see the Moen shower head up close. And I want to be clear, the state engaged in the ongoing activity creation in that method for the duration of my shower. Okay, so I'm at the shower now, and it literally is none other than a high-pitched squeaking. And it went up in volume, stayed up at that high pitch, going down in volume. It's nothing, it sounds like a whistle. That's what it sounds like. And continue to create that activity because that is what it is. This is actually not the shower head that is squeaking. And let me also be clear with regard to the elements which control where the state's pattern of conduct is established. It is audible activity. Whether, even if it was actually the shower head that was making that noise, understand that. But I'm going to go and let you know that this is the state's pattern to create activity, surround with activity, stalk with activity, and does so under the guise of whatever happens to be in the environment for purposes of the group stalking conduct with communication devices. That's how you monitor. Well, that's how a public entity that is acting in concert with the people of the state, that is engaging in an entirely malicious system, that is supposed to be attributed to the mental incapacity of that targeted individual that alleges that they're being stalked by the government or stalked by strangers that they don't know, or that they are being monitored in some way that they cannot decipher, but they suspect that it's occurring. This is why the state, and this is how the state operates. I am breaking it down as to what you are witnessing. That is the use of my use of the shower, taking video of what is none other than an ordinary shower that you see, all right, in operation. And what you are hearing is the state targeting audible activity into that location in the bathroom in the method of a squeaky whistle. That's supposed to be attributed to that shower head. So there is a separation between what you are actually witnessing. That sound that you are hearing is not coming from the shower, and that is an ordinary shower head, which is not making any squeaking noises whatsoever. And I want to be clear, this is within the pattern that I've already established. Not only are all the hallmarks present at this venue, the state is stalking. That's a hallmark. The state's fake sun is directly over my room. That's the hallmark. The state is directing light in all impossible manners. That is the hallmark. The people that surround in relevant position are engaging in activity creation pursuant to a very specific and identical behavioral pattern mirroring my movements. That is stalking with activity. That is a hallmark. That is P.O.C. even under circumstances of it being an actual shower head that was squeaking in this room in 227. I'm letting you know that's not the case. So I also want to be clear, I am in room 227 where that is a means of monitoring me while I am physically indisposed in use of what is a private space inside of a room, which is a private space where you maintain a reasonable expectation of privacy. This is totally obliterated where the government is monitoring you, necessarily stalking you on a ceaseless basis in order to monitor you, monitoring you at an unprecedented level with the people of the state that surround you, maintaining intentional presence vicariously on behalf of that public entity that is monitoring you with communication devices. The state is manufacturing audible activity in the same way that I point out the state is creating what is earthquakes, that's sensational activity. The state is creating what is light shows inside of the room. I've captured video. If you pay attention specifically, you want to pay attention to the March 30th, 2021 video where I am showing my hand movement in the window in order to demonstrate the trajectory of the light onto the ceiling. And my movement is consistent, and I'm narrating the P.O.C. I'm speaking about how they're monitoring. This is indicative of that. This is not even if that was the actual sun that remains over my room, over the parking lot of 2301 South Euclid Avenue for the duration of the day while I'm at my property in direct conflict with every other location that it has been documented as being present over my head in that same central position, and also remaining at that location where I remain outside of 2301 South Euclid Avenue. Even if that was the case, the light is shooting upward into the window, which is on the second floor under a shaded structure onto the ceiling, which, as I pointed out, was into the depths of the room, not even the ceiling right above my hand. You're talking about at an angle inside of the room. That is very strategically aimed, upward pointed light reaching inside of the room, deep inside of the room. And I maintain my light in my hand in movement in that light. And then what you're going to pay attention to, which I have pointed out, for example, on the YouTube video, YouTube is a third party seeking to actively engage in criminal obstruction of justice, blocking videos which are in no way in violation of their policies. No way requiring any sort of restriction, not only because they're ordinary, for example, a video of a shower head and audible activity that I'm talking about, videos of the sun, videos of people that are walking around me, that's not in violation whatsoever of any policy, in addition to the fact that the actual substance and the purpose of the videos is to provide evidence of what is an unprecedented criminal system in operation by a government. So in every way, YouTube is a third party acting in conformity to the public entity's pattern of conduct. That's how the entity operates, by the way. But I just want to be clear, referencing YouTube. This video is uploaded to YouTube, and I also have it uploaded onto my website, thepatternofconduct.wordpress.com, on March 30th. And you will see, as I maintain my movement in the state's light, which is directed light, artificially engineered light, aiming directly inside of the window, upward into the top of the window, reaching into the depths of the room on the ceiling, and what you see is some other object that is not my hand. It is in a different location on the ceiling, and I move my camera upward while I continue speaking because I'm letting the state show what it's doing. This foreign object moves upward and downward in this light, and it has flashing light while it moves up for like a minute, not a minute, a second and a half, 1.5 seconds, and then it moves down out of sight, and it's flashing light while it's doing so. That is that's called light activity. That is not my hand, second of all, as I had not moved my hand, and that is also demonic. And I pointed that out in the video details of that video. So I want to be clear, that's a hallmark. All right. You're talking about also what is indicated, the hallmark of the light activity, the flickering light in the bathroom, with simultaneity to my operation of my communication device, as I have on my podcast to record the audible activity. And then I go to turn on the camera, and the flickering light begins right in the bathroom. I take a picture of the light, and just so you can see the environment. The light's right above me. It all of a sudden starts flickering as I happen to be in operation of my communication device. That's a hallmark. Not only the light activity, but the simultaneity with which that light activity is occurring. And that is P.O.C. That is maintaining control over everything in the environment. There are no malfunctions. Okay? So I want to be clear on that. The other thing I want to point out is that this use of audible activity, because it is none other than a method of activity creation which is legally relevant for where the entity is monitoring. And understand, the entity knows that I don't have a communication device in my underwear, for example, or in the shower. It's listening to every single move that I make. That's how you're able to stalk with activity and even target that audible activity to the very location where you're at. That's how you're able to create audible activity with simultaneity to your very most minor, subtle movement, even bodily functions that are not audible to the human ear. All right? This is that which the state is engaging in. Third parties are engaging in. Okay, so you're going to bear all this in mind, in addition to the fact that the squeaky shower, which is none other than a method of activity creation inside of that private space, speaking to what's corporate invasion of privacy and sexually violent conduct, which is not even helping you monitor a communication device. That's what they're doing. But this is why I'm telling you, this is exceeding mere criminality. This is wicked at its core, okay? That is entirely demented and perverted conduct. That is sexually violent, predatory, it's sexually motivated conduct. What is the purpose in engaging in the criminal elements for monitoring while you know I don't even have my cell phone in the shower? What is the purpose of that? Because you're talking about the entity that knows that it's being documented. It's not a concession because it's already established. You're talking about an entity that is very stubborn with regard to the fact that it has already been defeated. You do not want everyone to know on the internet, i.e. the world, that you're monitoring American citizens, especially in the United States of America. They've already lost that. They have lost that abysmally, okay? But in addition to that, it is not any sort of concession Also, where you are, what are you, I don't have a cell phone. What is the purpose behind that? So you're not only analyzing what the state is engaged in, the state's engaged in monitoring, this, and pursuant to that, inherent to that pattern of conduct of monitoring, light activity, audible activity, visible or sensational activity, and relevant positioning, which is group stalking, maintaining presence in the path, which is how you monitor with communication devices. They're not only engaging in the pattern of conduct of monitoring inside of that private space, that's what's also relevant. What you're doing, monitoring, where you're doing it, in a private space. You're also analyzing what is the purpose, what's their state of mind, what is the knowledge that they have while they're engaging in that monitoring conduct, in that criminal system, all right? And then you're also analyzing the actor itself. This is the government. This is the government, vicariously present both by the roaches that are crawling around at this property, driving around. They're cockroaches, they're perverts, they're third parties. That is the people of the state of California vicariously present through the very people of the state and the government itself. This is an unprecedented level of a threatening actor. This is no ordinary stalker, okay? So you are analyzing all of that, not just the fact that the government is monitoring you, but the fact that it's the government that's monitoring you, the fact that it's the government that's monitoring you inside of the bathroom while you're nude and you don't even have a communication device on you, and doing so with knowledge that you're documenting, i.e. aware that you're being monitored based on the nature of the crime. When you're monitoring, you also know that your criminal activity is being documented, that the targeted individual that you're monitoring knows and or suspects that they're being monitored and stalked by you. This is a communication of a threat by a stalker. Understand that. This is no ordinary stalker. This is the government that is stalking you and communicating that threat. Understand that. This is the government that is stalking you and is monitoring you and doing so in ways that don't even accomplish their criminal purpose for monitoring with communication devices. I'm not doing anything on my phone when I'm nude in the shower. When I am washing my person, rinsing off my body parts, I'm being literal because you need to understand the level of depravity that the public entity is engaged in, that the people of the state of California are engaged in. Okay, those same group stalkers, i.e. Amazon Prime, that likes to use that brand to engage in the state's pattern of conduct is inextricably linked to that depraved conduct in that private space. The pattern of conduct does not stop when I'm walking outside so that Amazon Prime can engage in P.O.C, which it knows because it is monitoring. All right. The P.O.C does not stop as the state is amplifying third-party group stalkers, intentionally maintaining presence and creating activity that the state is applying to a microphone. As you want to drop your pen or use your little minionite child to stomp up and down, which the state creates amplified activity like they're the Hulk. All right, impossible sensational activity. It doesn't stop. That same activity is carried on into that private space where you don't even have a communication device on your person or in your reach, in the shower, physically indisposed, engaged in an exceedingly private and personal activity, which you know because you're monitoring. All of this is analyzed. That is that which is engaged in by the government, an unprecedented level of criminal conduct in concert with everyone in relevant position. What purpose is that serving with regard to monitoring? Okay, so this is what I'm saying. This is exceeding the mere 18 U.S.C. section 2261A subsections 1 and 2. They are monitoring. The government is monitoring with communication devices. This is demonic in its root. Understand that this is a satanic operation that exceeds the mere criminal motivation of monitoring with communication devices. There is a depraved level of obsession and intent and determination to seek to inflict torment, seek to inflict suffering. All right, because you're talking about who it is. The target individual that's documenting necessarily suspects and or knows that they're being monitored. You're communicating something to that target individual when you're engaging in that criminal pattern of conduct, when you already know that they don't even have a communication device on their person or in their reach. You know exactly what they're doing. All right, what is that? What, for purposes of monitoring, what is that accomplishing? And you're aware of everything that's going on. So this is what you are analyzing. Okay. And this is going to what the government is engaged in. The state of California is a sex offender, an exceedingly violent sex offender that is facilitating that criminal sexual violence in concert and facilitating the people of the state to be able to do that. The people of the state of California are facilitating each other to enable to do that. As you create activity, you're enabling everyone else to monitor as well. As you are engaging in light activity creation, you're enabling everyone else around a relevant position to monitor as well. You're enabling the government that's stalking around in police, fire, and ambulance vehicles and flying over me in planes and helicopters to be able to monitor. It's a corporate act. They're enabling each other. So the government is a facilitator. The people of the state of California are facilitators, and they're facilitating sexual violence that doesn't even accomplish at that moment in that space criminal monitoring. This is exceeding that criminal system. Understand that. The state of California is a sex offender. These are the implications, the inevitable conclusions based on analysis of the conduct. This is not opinion. Analysis of the conduct. Okay? That is that which is exceedingly violent based on the actors, the numerosity. The same numerosity that the state, the public entity falsely assumed would make it impervious to ever being found out, to ever being prosecuted, and then itemized into a policy such that it is prosecuted in a court of law. That same characteristic is flipped on its head. That numerosity equals exceptional violence, sexually perverted violence, not even accomplishing monitoring. What is it that they are gaining from listening to someone in that state washing their person? You're necessarily touching your person as you're washing yourself and using the bathroom, engaged in, we could take it further. You're talking about where the target individual may not know that they're being monitored. The government is listening and watching at all times, acting through third parties. If you are engaged in any sexual act, you're engaged in that sexual act with a third party. That is that which is public knowledge, and you don't even know it. That's perverted conduct. That's actually in violation of current law as well. All right? That's literally the creation of pornography without the consent of that person that is being violated. You think you're giving consent, but you're not giving consent because you're not aware that you're being monitored. This is what the government is facilitating. This is what the people of the state of California are facilitating. This is what the state of California is engaged in. And this is all reasonably implicated based on what you're analyzing. This is what I'm exposing. This is what the government is engaged in. All right? So you want to be clear. When I am stating that the states are, when I am saying the state is a sex offender, that's exactly what I mean. All you are doing is analyzing what controls the elements. And then you're talking about not only what they're doing, i.e. monitoring, you're analyzing where they're doing it in a private space. You're analyzing not only what they're doing and where they're doing it, but who is doing it. Remember, this is the government that's monitoring you in a private space. And not only that, you're not only analyzing what they're doing, where they're doing it, who is doing it, in concert with the people of the state of California. You're also analyzing what is their current state of mind. What is it that they know? Based on the nature of the crime, they know everything that you're doing inside of that private space. And so to that end, while you are nude, engaged in washing your person, touching on your body necessarily so because you're cleaning yourself or using the bathroom, what is it that they are gaining for purposes of monitoring you and doing that? Okay, this is that depraved level. Understand that this is at its root, at its core, this is satanic. All right? Not even accomplishing criminal monitoring. But I want to be clear, when I am providing relevant context, that's exactly what I'm speaking of. And that is that which is any other individual that was engaged in that level of stalking and invasion of privacy under those such circumstances would be correctly assumed and prosecuted as a sex offender, a mentally disturbed sex offender. Okay? That does not change because it's the government. Because you happen to have one who has nailed it to the wall, okay, irrespective of their ongoing determination to continue that criminal system that in no way speaks to the victory of the government. That is speaking to a very ferocious and intense federal prosecution on the world stage. That's what that speaks to. The government has already been defeated once you are documenting it and exposing it, okay? You're talking about afterthoughts in the form of the court of law. It's already done, all right? We have not gotten to this extension. By we, I mean the government, which is literally being made an example of, the people of the state of California being made an example of. This is a template for what the government is engaged in, and you are not getting to this juncture for no purpose. So I'll just leave it at that. And when I say that it is a sex offender, that's what the conduct displays. That's what the conduct is concluded as. If it were any other individual, that's exactly what we would be saying. It does not change. It's even worse. It's even more devastating when you are talking about the government inflicting this on an American citizen who also happens to know. That's a whole other level of seeking to inflict torment and suffering, where you're documenting the government, and so the government knows that you know you're being monitored, and you're engaging in that criminal system that doesn't even serve the purpose for monitoring with communication device, because you don't even have a phone or a laptop on. You don't have anything. You don't have your Bluetooth on in the shower. You're not doing any of that. All right, and so this is ongoing knowledge of that. This is everything that you're analyzing when I am presenting what is the evidence against the state of California, the public entity acting in concert with the people of the state. This is attributed to every third party that has been individually identified. This is an ongoing criminal act attributed to that group that is acting as one, that I have identified as the commercial actor that they are, using what they have at their disposal to monitor me and harass and threaten, either in relevant position on the venue of the internet and or inside of a private space, using whatever they have at their disposal to do so. The electricity, okay, the television services, all right, the water pressure, okay. So you're talking about the absolute control of the environment. The other thing that you're going to want to pay attention to is this is the same means of activity creation inside of that private space everywhere that I have been. I want to be clear. At Woodside Senior Apartments. Now, you're talking about the use of a squeaky shower. This is the creation of audible activity. This is occurring before I verbally identified it as such. And again, as I'm going about it, I'm documenting the public entity. I'm not at that moment when I'm hearing a squeaky shower thinking, they're monitoring me through the squeaky shower. The state engages in conduct, and it engages in it over and over and over again, and it is the absence of coincidence. Squeaky shower at Woodside Senior Apartments. Squeaky shower at Mayfair Inn. Squeaky shower at Economy Inn inside of room 230 on the second floor from when I was here from August 18th, 2020 up until the date that Ontario Police Department kidnapped me on September 25th, 2020. Squeaky shower in that room. Squeaky shower here inside of 227, the same venue. Okay, same two different rooms, having the same quote-unquote malfunctions with the television, having the same quote-unquote malfunctions with the swamp cooler, having the same quote-unquote malfunctions with the shower, having the same malfunctions quote-unquote with the flickering lights. That's not a coincidence, all right? That's called P.O.C. All right. And the state engages in more of it as I verbally identify it as such. The entire time I'm in the shower, the state using that as a means of audible activity creation. The government is monitoring me to that audible activity. That's POC, period. And I want to also be clear, the people of the state are sex offenders monitoring me in that space, in that state, to that activity. That's intentional. And understand, even if they weren't using a squeaky shower, you're talking about the government that's listening to you in the shower, listening to you as you're washing your body, as you're using the bathroom. You know all that's entailed in using the bathroom. They're listening very closely, okay? So closely. I told you, bodily functions, changing of eyesight, that's how closely they're listening. Shooting light through a peephole in the door, shooting light through the cracks of the door frame, all right? Shooting light through any way that it can sneak in or creep in. That's how closely they are listening and watching. And even if they weren't creating that activity in that space, that's how close you are being listened to at all times. That's a sex offender. That's a depraved, demented, and very disturbed level of not only stalking by a government, but that which is not even accomplishing that monitoring, of which is what they're engaged in. This is already established, but then you're doing it at that state. So this is everything you're analyzing. And you already know, as it is already established, you're being monitored. The state's not stopping its pattern of conduct so you can get undressed and get in the shower or use the bathroom. Oh, hold on, let her use the bathroom. Okay. No, all right, we're going to go ahead and well, we don't know when she's done because we're not listening at all times, so we'll just check that. No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that at all. And that is absolutely unreasonable to even posit. This is a ceaseless system, and it is demonic at its root. It is seeking to target an American citizen. It is seeking to torment, to inflict suffering for no legitimate purpose whatsoever. I suppose because I'm not Team Satan. I mean, if I was, understand, I wouldn't be targeted. I would be doing the weird stuff that they're doing. I'm not on that team. I am aware of what this entity is engaged in and who it's doing it through, and that's why I'm pointing it out. Understand, if I was on Team Satan, I would not be pointing out what Team Satan is up to. I'd be on that team keeping my mouth shut. Okay, this is why the Team Satan seeks to kidnap me. This is why Team Satan seeks to engage in harassing me. This is why Team Satan seeks to engage in manufacturing fictitious prosecutions in a court of law, while the courts themselves are boarding up, blocking the gates of justice. They're engaged in that same criminal conduct. That is the same Team Satan. Okay, understand what I'm talking about? It's P.O.C. through and through. And I also want to be clear, while we are drawing what is group conduct and how it is inextricably linked and how it doesn't stop at one actor or that specific criminal act that I happen to document that this individual was engaged in. No, it's group conduct. And that which the courts are engaged in, they're engaged in the totality of that criminal act. It does not stop. And everything that is reasonably foreseeable to precipitate from the criminal acts that those officers of the courts, that those judges engaged in, where you are not able to access what are your constitutional rights to redress in that forum. They are engaged in sexual violence. They're sex offenders. They are group stalkers. That's what facilitation of federal group stalking and monitoring is. And understand, when you are engaged in any aspect of the pattern of conduct, that is what the conclusion is. It does not change because you're talking about the government that happens to be in that which has never been addressed by legislation, which is a whole other level of a crime never really addressed at all. Oh no, it doesn't change. You're going to apply that law and it's going to be equally applied. I am no respecter of persons. The law will treat all of them the same. They are criminals engaging in criminal activity. They are facilitating that criminal activity, and their engagement in that makes them liable for every act that is reasonably precipitating from their engagement in that P.O.C. All right. And so anyway, it is 5:36 p.m. And that is all that you are analyzing. And this is attributed not only to where I'm at, those who are in relevant position, the people of the state of California engaged in ongoing group stalking. Understand the use of plain activity is the same. It's another method, using it in the shower. That's all that is. And I also want to be clear, the state creating plain activity while I'm in the shower room. All right, that's also impossible audible activity. All right, unless you are literally hovering over. Either way, it doesn't help the state. It's either hovering over the roof of the room, which I've also shown in video, or it is amplifying targeted audible activity. Either way, you're actually not going to hear plain activity in the shower room. All right, it's indication of ongoing stalking. It's indication of that ongoing conduct of targeting audible activity. And understand the shower head noise, because that's not actually the shower head making that noise. This is the same entity creating artificially engineered sound inside of the shower room, which is under the guise of coming from the shower. I can actually hear with my ears that it's centered in sound in the bathroom, but it's not actually coming from the shower head at all. The shower head is it's actually a very well working shower head. It's in a good condition, which, I can't say that for the rest of the room necessarily. So, but the shower head it's in pristine condition. I even took pictures of it, and when the state is stopping and starting, there is no sound coming from the shower head at all. Even when it's even when the state is creating the noise, it's not coming from the shower head. It's the same conduct that I've already pointed out. State amplifying noises in the walls, the state amplifying third-party conduct, the state creating earthquakes, the state amplifying what is supposed to be the sound of cars zooming in at all areas inside of this room by the sink. I mean, that's deep inside of the room, and you're not hearing the freeway traffic. That's ridiculous. And also the videos that I've shown giving you a visual of what is amplified audible activity targeted in its location in the room, as you're seeing the helicopters at a distance acting like they're doing something else, but they always happen to be quote unquote doing something else around me in relevant position. That's stalking. All right. And then you're also seeing how they're engaged in ongoing stalking everywhere that I'm at. That is the absence of coincidence. I have captured what is group stalking by the state in planes and helicopters. What you're looking at in those videos, though, are the distance that they are. Very often they're flying at a distance, but yet it is super loud in the room. How are you doing that? Because you are artificially engineering that sound inside of my room. You're targeting it to where I'm located while you're in relevant position. Including all the state's light source. The flickering light on Euclid Avenue, that's light activity. They are systematically monitoring on Euclid Avenue, driving past, monitoring on the run, just like every other third party whose license plate I recited. And I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them in my documentation and documented and published on my podcast already. Literally from the date of release from being kidnapped by the Ontario Police Department, then transferred to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, being kidnapped by the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court, maintaining a fictitious prosecution wherein there was no trial. I've gone through all of that, review my documentation on that, but the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court engaged in kidnapping me, transferring me back and forth as amongst the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. And then once I was released after being kidnapped, maintained in that illegal confinement, that's a kidnapping while you're monitoring, by the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, transferred by West Valley, and then released December 7th on, I began documenting third parties. Well, not began, actually. I've been documenting, if you listen to my podcast, I've been identifying third-party actors as I'm encountering them. But I have identified hundreds and hundreds of them as they were engaged in the P.O.C. as I encountered them. And literally day by day, going back to December 7th, 2020 on. And this is already published on my podcast, the P.O.C. Pattern of Conduct, and that is both on Anchor. That's the application where I am using the platform for my podcast, but it is also available on iTunes. It's available on Google Podcasts. It's available on many platforms. I surmise you can Google it, irrespective of Google's attempts to try to suppress my name and the platforms that my documentation are published on. And it is also links in the YouTube videos. If you read the details of the videos and the playlist descriptions, I'm providing links to those podcasts because I have provided an audible and visible form of documentation. They are married. What you're looking at and what you are also listening to, which is equally valid and rich documentation of ongoing proof of stalking by the state and stalking by the state vicariously through the people of the state of California. So it is, again, it's 5:41 p.m. and that is the P.O.C. This is documentation of the fact that the government is engaged in or documented as the sex offender that it is. And this, again, is just one aspect. The state is a sex offender ceaselessly molesting the person, violating the person with its light, this artificially engineered light, touching all over while it is stalking you with this light source. All right. Third parties are sex offenders touching you with their means of light in concert with the state that's touching with its directed light. They act as one. Nothing is ordinary activity in your in relevant position where they are touching the person at all. You are an exceedingly threatening stalker, and then you are going the extra step of touching with your instrument of criminal conduct. That is sexually violent conduct. It's group conduct, and that is where the sexual violence comes from, and it is also serving to their criminal purpose to monitor you. So you're touching while you're engaging in a crime against me while you're stalking me. Okay. That's sexual violence of a whole other unprecedented level. And in that regard as well, the state is a sex offender. All right. It is, again, April 29th, 2021. It's 5:42 p.m. and that is the P.O.C.